And we're talking about Girl in the Fireplace today.
And
Yay.
Eden is perhaps not for the whole thing, but we'll see how that plays out. I think she might have significantly more to say about this episode than I do.
I like it a lot.
Because, I don't know, this is an early Moffat episode, so knowing me, like any and all of my comments might just devolve talking about Moffat tropes. And we did that last time, so maybe I'm just going to sort of be a partial spectator this time around. I don't know.
There's a man that's coming.
yes, there is. But opening thoughts, it was good.
Renette and Ten are OTP.
I'll save that until we're officially talking about Renette as a character. But opening thoughts is real good.
Yep, it's pretty good. You got like a fairy tale feel to it. I like it.
One of my 5 favorite Doctor Who episodes ever.
Probably my favorite Ken episode.
Wait.
70% sure.
Do we just want to start right out talking about Renette? Because
Sure.
people,
The elephant out of the room.
I mean, the elephant in any other situation would just be Rose. Thankfully,
Rose was tolerable this episode.
mostly because she and Mickey were almost completely superfluous. Yes, everyone's gonna make the obvious comparison. Renette is pretty much proto-Amy, and this whole episode is just like a first draft of what we eventually do with Series 5.
The original Girl Who Waited.
Yeah. I think this is an instance where making Renette like a love interest arguably takes away from her potential to be an interesting character. I don't know.
I mean, it's different when creating a character than taking a historical figure that has like a known personality.
Especially since you could argue that like it happens too fast. Although my one big defense for that would be like they literally look into each other's minds. Like any story that has telepathy in it sort of gets a free pass from me on whatever character relationship progression that you want. Like
Pacific Rim.
she can fall in love with someone who she's technically only met like 4 times. She's been in his brain. She technically knows what it is to be this person. Fine, whatever. She can be in love with him, in legitimate love. I fine. And like it's a fascinating idea. And Steven Moffat still has this to an extent, but this was back when all of his episode concepts were just real fascinating on paper. A ship cannibalized its crew for parts, and now it needs to stalk 18th century French aristocracy in order to finish the job. Like, in what other show could you have that premise?
It actually worked somehow.
It's a great idea. It's not like it's a terrible idea that they somehow make work. It's a real creative, who thought of this sort of genius.
Character, or is she just there and serves as a love interest?
Yeah, I mean, like, she's a love interest and a plot device for a really fascinating plot.
She's just sort of generally nice.
She does have the occasional line where I'm like, oh, wow, that's actually, we're really thinking about this character. Like, particularly in her scene with Rose, when Rose is explaining stuff and she just, like, puts it together. And she dismissively calls Rose a child, which gets her plus 10 points in my book.
Yeah.
She picked up on that awful fast.
Said on Snow White, where it's just like, she's generally nice. Okay, there is something particularly deep about her, but it's more like plot-based than it is her as a character. But on the other hand, she doesn't really have any flaws.
This isn't her story. This story is all about the Doctor's character progression, or he's the one who sort of kind of has an arc, and she's just sort of the means to that end.
Pretty much. I mean, she doesn't have that much time to actually do anything, so, I mean...
I said earlier that pretty ladies with pretty accents get, like, thumbs up from me, so...
So, should we talk about the clockwork?
I like it a lot.
You don't have the parts.
Just the kind of design and the kind of concept. If, like, the constraints of this story didn't make it so that they completely stopped functioning and there were no more of them left, purring bad guys.
Yeah.
Like, we would have them in different time periods, like, constantly putting on different, like, disguises and period dress and abducting people for body parts.
I would love that. I want, like, the 1930s of that.
This is sort of like an idea that you could mold a couple different stories around. Just like the plot device of, oh, you've got killer robots that want you for a specific body part.
And I love the design of these creatures. You know, they look like a wasp.
Even though they clearly only made one of them, and the whole costume thing was just so that they could get away with having all of the others be people in costumes.
Pretty much.
It's
I can't blame them.
Before them with just like the mask and everything, they have kind of a creepiness to them that I like.
They have an uncanny valley effect to them because it's like they're human shaped, but at the same time, like they don't move or talk like a regular human does. So, like, pretty dead giveaway if you're not looking at them from behind.
Yeah, like it's kind of a terrible disguise when you really think about it.
But like the scenes like where they find one underneath the bed, it's very effectively creepy.
And though I said I didn't want to devolve into just talking about like tropes that pop up in early Moffat stuff that he picks up with, but that is something that on this viewing I was thinking about, where it's like, yeah, he really loves even now to do that, where like something really obvious will be off in the room or whatever, and the doctor will be like, hey, you notice what's weird about that really obvious thing that's off and weird? And some character will be like, no, what are you talking about? And he'll be like, well, the thing that none of us have been paying attention to, turns out it was a big deal. It's let me in, please let me in, are you my mommy? The tape has stopped. The kid is actually in the room thing again.
I don't know. It always seems to work for me.
I mean, it works. It always works in the moment, but it's something that Moffat keeps doing. Like, we're going to have to keep watching out for it in every episode he does. We're paying attention to something that's seemingly more important, and that little repetitive noise in the background that we've sort of been ignoring, or that repeated phrase that someone keeps saying in the background. He'll do it in the library episodes. We should go, doctor. Like, always a repeated thing, a repeated sound bite in the background is what we should have been paying attention to all along.
Even though he's done it like 4 or 5 times now, it always gets me.
Yes, there's tons more in this episode, but it feels like everyone's talked about it and picked it apart. We could talk about the scene where he's drunk.
I was gonna say that this episode has like some of the most memorable and mimetic and overall humorous lines in general.
I do want to say something about 10 in this episode. When he goes to save her, you remember how he gets on the horse and goes through the portal? He basically left Rose and Mickey to die.
Oh, yeah. I even thought of it like that.
I'm sure the TARDIS can sustain them. I mean, it has to have a kitchen somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, I never thought about it like he was leaving them with no real route of escape. Is it even really the greater good? Yeah, you don't want to let an innocent woman die, even though she's going to die in about 6 years anyway. But, like, to save this lady's brain, he sort of leaves Mickey and Rose to who knows what, really. And it's kind of weird when you put it like that, because I thought it was even a bit of a stretch that he'd do that just for his own sake, that yeah, he doesn't have the TARDIS now. He's going to have to wait a couple centuries, like a couple dozen centuries. How am I going to find a way to contrive it so that I'm on that ship just as I leave that ship? Because you know that's what he would do. Like, he'd wait all those years until he'd find a way to be like, what, that ship is taking off from this planet now? Okay, I have to find a way to get there, get on the ship, and then I'll be right there.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
I mean, that sounds like something he would do. But he doesn't seem very affected by it either, that decision. He just seems like, well, I'm just going to have to live in this time period now. And he doesn't seem upset at all that he left Rose and Mickey behind.
I think the doctor secretly knows how insufferable Rose is.
Makes it worse because he's supposed to be in love with her and stuff. So it's like he just abandoned her for the first cute blonde that shows up.
Man, this is the only episode like in all of this season that doesn't like play with that at all.
Because Steven Moffat doesn't want any of it.
She isn't even that bad in this episode.
She isn't even jealous of Justin, and he's way meaner to Mickey than he has been in a little while. Like when she's like, "You're not keeping the horse. I
need to keep Mickey."
That's got to be like the meanest thing that 10 has said to him.
If this was 9, he would have said, "I want you to keep Ricky."
He would be a little meaner about it. 10 does not seem to like Mickey very much to me when I rewatched this. I remember him being more like palling around with him, but on rewatch, he really treats him bad.
Yeah.
Hasn't already been done to death is like the horse was like the one
Yeah.
thing I always remember from this episode is the shot of him breaking the mirror with the horse.
I don't know why, but when I first watched this show, and like I wasn't really familiar with like what it was, and I just see him walking around in the spaceship with the horse, I'm like, I really hope the horse stays for like several episodes.
The horse
I
would
hope
make
they
a better companion than Rose.
Yeah, like Rose says, we're not gonna let you keep the horse. Next episode is David Tennant, Arthur the horse, and no one else.
It did just opens with Rose being stunned, standing expecting that the doctor left her for a horse.
And left her on the ship, didn't even give her Jackie.
Yeah, just left her. That would have been awesome.
I mean, hey, Rose technically gets replaced with a dog next episode, which is slightly more fitting.
Oh, yeah. That dog's more likable.
Yeah, any dog is more likable than Rose.
I thought that Martha replaced Rose.
No, we're talking about the next episode, the Cyberman two-parter.
We just got done talking about an episode that was really bad and we didn't have much to say. This is an episode that's
It's
really
really
good,
good.
but I don't have much to say about it.
There was that foreshadowing, though. That was Doctor Who. It's more than just a name, isn't it? And I'm just like, I get it, because it's the question.
Plus, I'm really distracted because I can't stop thinking about Guardians 2. And Eden is tired and has school in the morning. Assuming that Edward or Lucy doesn't have something really like in depth about with this episode, I think we're just gonna split.
It's a very cool episode. So, bananas are good. What are monsters scared of? Me. Look what the cat dragged in. The oncoming storm. The king's wife and the king's girlfriend. France. It's a different planet. The doctor calling Cleopatra Cleo. That's it. That's all I got.